I'm Monroe LaBuise, and I'm the chair of this commission. And let's call the meeting to order. Oh, I should call.
You're looking at me, but we haven't.
I'm always looking at Commissioner Heber-Levy, who used to be the vice chair of administration, but she is now vice chair of membership. So I will ask Commissioner Liu to establish a quorum.
Yes, I'm happy to take the role. Chair LaBuise.
Present.
Myself, I'm present. Amaya Nori.
I don't see him yet.
Vice Chair Heber-Levy.
Present.
Commissioner Bocanegra.
Not with us yet, I don't think.
Commissioner Bustos.
Present.
Commissioner Satvik Nori.
Not there either.
Okay. Commissioner Rasmussen.
Here.
Commissioner Swope.
Here.
Commissioner Uhila.
Don't see you yet.
Commissioner Wilson.
Here.
Have 7. So we have
So we have a quorum.
I move approval of the agenda.
I second that.
Do any commissioners have any comments or questions about the agenda? Okay, all in favor of adopting the agenda?
Aye.
Aye. Any objections? Any abstentions? All right, the agenda is approved. Thank you. Moving on to the minutes from December.
I have some edits.
You have some edits, okay?
Just
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's get a motion on the
Oh,
floor.
sorry.
I
Thank you,
move
yes.
approval of the minutes.
a second.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All right, so the first one is on the B, Youth Services Center. There's no mention of the recommendations or the attached slide. So if we could just add a sentence that just mentions that the slides are attached that include the recommendations, because that's the biggest part of the report of the presentation.
That's strange. I did add that.
Okay.
And then on going to on the next page, page 3, there is mention about asking for probation to inform us of incidents at the facility, and that was something that was already in the report. That went into the report already. And then lastly, the discussion about the water just under that. Actually, the verbiage should be water testing, that we asked for the water to be tested because we, in the 2021 inspection, we were able to get the water coolers. So they're already on the unit. Jim helped me do that with those last year. So it would just be the water testing that it was recommended that we have the water tested.
Okay.
And that those would be my edits.
Okay. Melissa, I think you might not be muted. I'm not sure. Or so if anyone does connect to the Zoom from the room, just make sure you're muted and that your speaker's off also, because otherwise it causes feedback.
I'm disconnected.
Okay, good. So then you're not causing any feedback for people online. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Rasmussen. Does anyone else have comments or edits to the minutes? Then maybe we can amend the motion to adopt the minutes with Commissioner Rasmussen's edits.
Adopt the minutes as amended.
Okay, let's have a vote from the commissioners to adopt the December minutes as amended by Commissioner Rasmussen. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Or abstentions? All right, terrific. The minutes are adopted. So the next item on our agenda is the reappointment of Commissioners Bustos and Rasmussen, who have filled partial terms when they started on the commission and now are being sworn in for full 4-year terms. And Judge Attizzati is here to do the honors. I'm going to stop the share of the agenda so we can maybe see her better. Okay.
Okay, and I see Johanna, but is Alan there? Is Alan there?
On the screen.
Alan is
Oh,
online, so he's not in the room.
Okay, so I only see myself on the screen and I see everybody else in the room. I guess that's okay. Well, it's an honor and a privilege to swear in both Alan and Johanna this evening. So if I could ask Alan and Johanna to please raise your right hand. Thank you. And state your name.
Johanna Rasmussen.
Alan Bustos.
And repeat after me. I do solemnly swear
I do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend.
that I will support and defend
Oh, I guess I need to hear from Alan too.
That I will support and defend
The Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California
Alan?
Oh, the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California,
to the Constitution of the United States and to the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation
they take this obligation freely without any mental reservation,
that I take this Constitution freely without any mental obligation,
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation
that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
that I will well and faithfully
that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties I'm about to enter.
discharge the duties I'm about to enter.
discharge the duties I'm about to enter.
Congratulations. So proud of
Thank
you both. I will sign these reappointment documents and I will forward them to Adriana, and then she will forward them to each of you so that you can also sign them. They've been signed by our presiding judge and myself, and then you sign, and then we are official. Congratulations. Thank you. It was an honor and a privilege.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge Attizzati.
Thank you.
All right. Moving on now to item 2 in the agenda. We always take a moment here to invite public comment and to invite public comment specifically on items that are not on the agenda. When we do get to items on the agenda, we'll also ask for public comment at that time. So if there are any members of the public that would like to inform the commission and make public comment on items not on the agenda, please raise your hand and let us know. Okay, not seeing any public comment, we'll move on to section 3 of the agenda. Oh, we do have somebody? Ms. Keeler, we see you.
Thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. I'm representing a unofficial group of concerned citizens tonight, and we just have 2 questions. I'm not quite sure how this should be addressed, but I'll put it out there and do with it as you can. We're aware of the unanimously passed resolution A02-2022, and we understand that DA Wagstaff is not abiding by it and has recently charged a young man who has no record as an adult. My question is this. We'd really like to see this resolution that you passed put into effect. And Monroe, we're wondering if you would be willing to request a meeting with DA Wagstaff and in regards to this resolution. And if so, we have a number of community members who'd be happy to support you either in person or however you would like. My second question is, we've also read the really excellent YSC report that your committee did, and we're wondering what has to be done also to get that implemented. And again, you have community support. We're just asking your advice and asking you to take the lead and let us know how we can support it.
Great, thank you so much for your comment. And we will be talking tonight about plans for 2023, and all of that could certainly be something that the commission looks at doing, and we'll talk about it together tonight. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
I see Ms. Andrade Zuniga has her name up. Sorry, her hand up. And her name up on the screen.
Thank you, everyone. Hi.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. The Commission on Disabilities, and in conjunction with the school districts and other community-based organizations, is having our annual Transition to Independence Fair this Saturday from 10 to 2 at El Camino High School. It's an event that provides different resources, entertainment, information, education, workshops for youth that have disabilities that are transitioning into adulthood. So it'll be a lot of just a great time and great information. And then also the Behavioral Health and Recovery Services Youth Committee is hosting a community conversation on February 15th from 4 to 5 around mental health and services and things like that. So if anyone's interested, I guess just send me an email. I'll put my email in the chat, and then I can forward you the information. And lastly, the North Peninsula chapter of the ACLU is always looking for youth to join our chapter. So if anyone is interested, or even not, you don't have to be a youth, you could also be an adult to join. So we're always looking for folks to join us. Thank you.
Thank you. And if you wanted to post some information about those events in the chat, like a link, you're welcome to do that. Thanks for that.
Thank you. I will. Thanks.
Yeah. Okay, if there's no other public comment, then we will move on to section 3 of the agenda. This is usually at the beginning of our meetings, we pause to get some updates from partners at county agencies. And in the interest of getting to item 4 on the agenda, which each year we, as a commission, talk about our plans for the year and do other things like adopt our operating policies. So in the interest of time, for this meeting, I've asked just the private defender and probation to provide updates. And if there are other members from other partner agencies that often give us updates that really have something timely that they want to add, just let me know. But with that, I will turn it over to Ron Reyes from the Private Defender's Office.
Good evening, everyone. So I have a quick update for you. From December 6th till today's date, we had 79 assignments of 602 cases. Of those 79, 13 were 707 alleged 707B offenses. We handled 10 sealing petitions, and then we received 83 calls on our Miranda helpline.
Thank you.
What were the 10, Ron? What were the?
The 10 are the sealings petitions,
Okay, thank you.
record sealings.
Okay, thank you.
So a question for you, Ron, this, I feel like I should know this, but do you place lawyers for 300 cases as well as 600?
We do.
You do? Okay,
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Sure. Some attorneys overlap, some of them are just, they handle 300 cases.
Good, thanks.
I just want to double check that people online can hear the updates from the end of the table pretty well. Yes, I'm seeing head nods. Okay, great. Should be open. Commissioner Bocanegra is trying to get in the room. Okay. Melody's gonna give the update. Yeah. All right, thank you. Thank you, Ron. And moving on now to updates from probation. Ms. Stauffer, are you gonna start us off?
Yes, hello everyone, Happy New Year. So I go through a fair amount of stats just to give you an idea of what the last month, how many new cases we got, how many new cases we received, what our current cases are, and then some of the assignments in terms of caseload numbers. So I'll start out with diversion and intake. These are new cases either being assessed for diversion or going through the court process. We had 185 new cases, or 185 cases total. I'll get into the new cases in a minute. 123 cases in supervision, and that includes informal court-ordered supervision and formal probation, for a total of 308 cases for December. In terms of new cases that we received in the month of December, we had a total of 34. 10 were assigned for assessments with BHRS. 22 were mandatories and sends to the DA's office. And we had 2 referred to the petty theft program. We also have 0 youth on contract right now. So we have a 90-day diversion contract and 6-month informal diversion contract. We have 0 youth on contract right now. And we typically have a high success rate with our contracts. In terms of the top 5 offenses that were sent to the DA's office, it was assault with a deadly weapon, first degree burglary, lewd acts with a minor child, conspiracy, and battery. Those were the top 5 charges for the month of December. We have 0 youth in placement, which we're always really happy to report out on. 2 youth who are receiving non-minor dependent extended foster services. And 5 youth with gang orders. So that's the data that I have for December. And then we always report out on our youth that we served by race and gender. We had a total of 64% of the youth, Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin, 12% Black or African American, 10% white, 7% other race, ethnicity, origin, or unknown, and 6% Native Hawaiian or Pacific Islander, 2% Asian. We served, or are serving, 248 male youth, 59 female youth, and 1 transgender youth. And then in terms of updates, I don't think that Jahan and I shared at the last meeting, because we didn't know quite yet. We've shared with some of the JJ DPC commissioners. We have had a big change in our assignments. So Jahan and I are now in a hybrid model. I'm over the institution and 1 unit in juvenile services. And Jahan is over camp and a unit downstairs in juvenile services. So certainly we're learning a lot, and I continue to see the great work that our staff do. I want to say a big thank you to all of our partners. I know especially in December, just the gifts, the food, the pizza, really letting the youth and staff know that you support us, and we really appreciate that. So, and I'll stop there.
Thank you, Melanie. The only thing I just needed to add was we currently have 19 youth on electronic monitoring. As far as the juvenile hall, we have 22 youth in custody, 20 males, 2 females. And our girls camp, we have 3 youth in custody and 2 are from Sonoma.
2 of the 3.
Yes.
Yeah. And how many in the girls in GEP who are not in residence but come in?
There's none right now.
Oh, none right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think our female population is really, I mean, which is a good thing, has declined. We have 2 right now that are in custody. And really we've been down to 0 on certain occasions.
In the past 6 weeks or so. Yeah.
Probably the past like 6 months, a year.
Yeah.
Has a benchmark ever been established for how many girls would need to be at camp to have it be truly residential again?
We haven't really talked about it lately. I know that the discussion, in the past, prior to the pandemic, I would think the numbers kind of need to stabilize. And even though we have a contract with Sonoma, we look at our girls that are here. And so I think unless we see more numbers, or we're looking at, that's why I think girls empowerment, what other programs, what other things we can offer as well. So I'm not saying we're not going to discuss it, we just haven't lately.
Do you have any insight on the food situation and what the decision-making process is, or what other alternatives have been explored?
Well, here lately we have not. I know before they have, and just looking to see what other counties are doing. So we have done that more recently, seeing, what other counties offer. Are they going with anybody? Some people have internal. So we are looking at what options that we have.
The Canyon Oaks is run, has the food being brought in by the hospital, and it's sort of a hybrid model. And so it would maybe be interesting to look at how much their budget is, because the food is good. But they do have 1 staff member on site who's also cooking some stuff live. So, yeah.
And I think we probably look at that. Maybe send me the information.
Oh, sure. Yeah. You got it. We could also get the budget for that and send that to you, because that might be again, benchmarking off of what it might cost the facility.
Thank you. Great. And Jihan, do you know off the top of your head when that contract with the Sheriff's Department ends?
I don't. I'm sorry.
I have a question. Out of the 59 female youth that we're serving, how many of those are Sonoma County? Is it only the 2 of 3 out of the 59?
So just to, and Melanie can correct me, but our numbers that she mentioned for probation aren't included because they're not under our supervision. So essentially, Sonoma places their youth with us, but they keep their same probation officer, they keep their same judge, everything. It's just more of a placement in receiving our services that we offer our youth.
Do you know off the top of your head, how much we receive for each Sonoma girl that we provide services to?
No, I don't know.
And then the other thing, 2 more questions, and then I'll leave you alone, Ms. Clark. Camp, has there been any movement or any discussion now that we have secure track? We have kids that can spend up to 7, 8 years now in these adult like 270 design cages. Is there any discussion for a transitional program before they re-enter our schools, our churches, our communities, of converting camp to a transitional program so that boys can receive some equal treatment?
So we are working on a step down program. I think there is further discussion about that, just because I know some of our neighboring counties are looking at their camp as a step down. The issue is because of the penal codes and everything that's like above us, it has to be secure. And so with that would call for modifications to what's there, like what's there in place. We couldn't move that population there because it's not considered a secure setting. So there are conversations taking place. And what that is gonna look like, I can't answer that yet, but we are thinking of, keeping that option open and just really looking at what our surrounding counties, what they're going through, just because, it's a bigger issue.
Yes, and then the last thing is, I received an email from Santa Clara, Office of Youth and Community Restoration. They're doing great work in Santa Clara. That is the county that condemned me. And so respectfully, I have to admit, I'm very impressed with the things they're doing. And I received an email that there's a program that they're offering, and they're also offering probation departments up to $150,000, and I'll forward you the email, to find alternatives in incarcerating young girls in our institutions. And with our numbers, we have one Sonoma County female there that's taking advantage of our taxpayer dollars, and the other two are girls that unfortunately are in a county that aren't really investing in the restoration of their youth. And it's unfortunate that they were sent here. But is there like any? Would you be interested in me sharing this information to find some alternative? Because we have one San Mateo County youth there. I think that facility can be better served for our boys, right? Like they've never had a step down or a camp. And, I'm just saying that I think it'd be appropriate to provide them both equal treatment.
Well, I will say, just as a sidebar, so for our youth that taking the SOAR program out of it, so for our youth that are committed more long-term, or at least their 6 months, they are offered similar services as camp. Okay. Once Glenwood closed down, we established our prep program, Phoenix Reentry. And so we've had a number of youth, a small handful because of COVID, in that program where they do get the home passes. We've had youth who from in custody go out and work and things like that. And Kate's right next to me, Fly is really, really involved in that, and can speak a little bit to that. So we do offer similar service, family therapy and things like that for the youth in that the boys, or I'll say youth, because it could be anybody, male, female, in that program receiving those services.
Thank you, Ms. Carter. And I'm sorry for always asking.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Are there any other commissioners that have questions from Ms. Stoffer, Ms. Clark?
I just had one clarifying question about when Ms. Stoffer said that she's in charge of juvenile hall in one unit, and Ms. Clark is in charge of camp in one unit. Which unit is it?
So she's referring to juvenile services.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Or our services side. And
okay.
So, yeah, she oversees on the institution side camp, and then I oversee camp, and then compliance.
Okay.
So I still do inspections, so we can't
okay.
get rid of me yet.
Okay.
And then on the services side. So
okay, I get it. So it's not like one is overseeing one unit and one is
no.
Thank you very much.
Okay, great. Before we move on to item 4, our annual meeting on the agenda, I would just welcome any comment from the public on what we've heard in item 3. If there are any members of the public that would like to make a comment, you're welcome to now before we move on to item 4. Okay, hearing none, then we will we'll continue. Thank you for those updates. And item 4 on the agenda is called the 2023 annual meeting. Our operating policies say that at each January meeting that we will hold an annual meeting, and we will discuss 3 things. One is our operating policies, which we will review, discuss, and adopt. The second is to look at what we did in 2022, and for that, Each year, the chair writes a annual report, which is in the agenda packet and was distributed to commissioners before the meeting. And then the third thing that we do is look forward to 2023. Specifically in the operating policies for that third item, it says that the commission will consider, quote, the chair's vision for 2023. And I'll just say that one thing I would like, maybe we should consider editing in the operating policies is, instead of saying that we'll consider, quote, the chair's vision, I prefer a more collaborative approach where the commission discusses the vision and the plans for 2023. And so maybe we could wordsmith that a little bit. But that's just my preamble. Before we move on to section 4A, the first thing we're going to do is review our operating policies and adopt operating policies for the year. So I know that one thing that we do want to discuss, Commissioner Wilson put forward, and in the agenda packet, there is also a one-page proposal for a change to the operating policies. We can go straight to that, or if there are other items in the operating policies that commissioners wanted to change, now's the time to bring that up.
So
Commissioner Rasmussen.
Thank you. So on page 4, it's in section G, and it's down the third paragraph, where it says all commissioners are expected to participate as needed by the commission in the commission's legally mandated annual inspections. I'd like to propose that we remove as needed by the commission, because it is our mandate. It is something that's mandated. And I think that everyone should participate. I think that when you join, it's part of our responsibilities. And so I think that we should stick to that everyone should be, of course, if something comes up and you're unable to do it, but I just think that it should be very clear that that's our mandate and that's what we are responsible for doing.
Can you tell me again which section you're looking
So
at?
it's page 4, it's under item G, and it is
So it's Article 2, item G, regular attendance.
It is Article 2, membership in term of office.
Right.
So at the bottom of the page, it says page 4, it's G, regular attendance.
Right, okay, yep.
And then it says, it's the third paragraph, all commissioners are expected to participate in the commission's legally, but here it reads as needed by the commission. And I'm proposing that we remove the as needed and just say all commissioners are expected to participate in the commission's legally mandated annual inspections.
Okay. I think we just changed this last year, and I do think that we said as needed by the commission, because sometimes not everyone is needed for the inspections, or maybe not everyone is able. So just as background, that is why we put that phrase in there. Is there? But
I remember that.
do commissioners have any other?
We were just trying to be flexible and
we're
recognizing
just
that
trying to
it
be
wasn't,
Well,
it was an expectation that all would participate unless they were not able to, and the commission didn't.
It does say are expected. Already.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
The languages are already are expected. Yeah.
I know last year we ran short. We ran very short on
Yeah, we did.
inspections. So,
Right.
Short?
yeah, very short.
It's hard to find enough people, is I think what Commissioner Rasmussen is saying. Are there any more discussion on that change? Or do any commissioners have any objection to making that change?
I'm not sure it changes anything practically speaking.
Then it doesn't change it one way or the other, so sure.
I think it's cleaner with it removing it.
Okay. Yeah. Do we need to make a motion on that, Susan, or should we wait until all the edits?
You need to make a motion to accept the operating policies, and then you need to make motions to amend
Right.
specific areas.
So why don't we make a motion?
Okay, I move that we accept the current operating policies, and then Johanna should move to make that change.
Got it.
And should I do that after the other changes or should,
No, you should do it,
You can do it now.
but we don't have the motion, the main motion on the table, which
Right.
is, I move that we accept the operating
I
policy.
second that motion.
All right, so we have that motion on the table and now we can amend that motion
Correct.
by making a motion to strike as needed by the commission from that section of
So you,
Article 2, Section G.
so you move to amend the motion by. and tell-
okay, so I move to amend the motion by removing the verbiage in
Article 2,
under-
Section G.
thank you very much, in the third paragraph. That states.
As needed by the
There
commission.
we go, thank you. And I'd also like to make a edit under officers, on page 7, under marketing and communications coordinator, to remove the oversight of the JJDP website from the marketing and communications coordinator position. I know that when I first came onto the commission and I was recruited as that for this position, the goal was to create our own website that wouldn't necessarily be on the probation page, but it was something that we were going to explore to see if we could just create our own. And then that would have been something that I would have managed. But as it stands now that it's rebuilt, it's really just an administrative task to upload things, and it's really not a marketing task. So I think this would be the time to consider removing that.
Probably put it somewhere
Can I
else.
just ask where else you would suggest putting it?
I would put it under the vice chair of administration because it is an administrative duty, I believe. Just sending it to Adriana to upload onto the website is basically an administrative task, I would think. What does everyone else
Or we
think?
could do it like share it between the vice chairs.
Vice
If
chair.
something seemed to be logically under membership, kind of updated what
Mhm.
was pertaining to membership that seemed to be appropriate. And then if there are other things pertaining to, making sure we have a current operating plan and such that could go under administration.
I just know from my time, my 2 years of working with Adriana, that it's easy when there's one person handling all the tasks, because otherwise we're duplicating work, or she may not get the messages, or we may not communicate effectively with each other to let each other know what's being done. So that's just my personal experience doing it.
Yep.
But it was easier with having one person assigned.
Well, that should be a separate amendment, so we should really vote on the first amendment and then go to the second amendment.
We need a second on the,
Yeah, we have a motion to strike that verbiage from Article 2, Section G. Do we have a second?
we have a second.
All right, all in favor, all commissioners in favor of striking that phrase?
Aye.
Aye. All right, that amendment to the motion passes.
And now,
And now we're,
Another.
Johanna, go ahead and make a second motion.
Okay,
to
Susan, I move to
Amend the motion.
amend the motion.
yeah, all right, well, yeah, move to, that's right.
Yeah, you move to amend the original motion on the floor, yeah.
Okay, to remove under the officers section, to remove oversight of the JJDPC website from the duties and responsibilities of the marketing and communications coordinator.
And move that responsibility to the vice chairs. How about that? I think it needs to be somewhere, so we'll make that
From
clear in the operating policies.
Okay, to I guess it would be co-vice chairs.
There are more than one vice chair, so we'll just say vice chairs and
Okay.
we'll work it into those sections. That's clear? Is there a second?
Second that motion.
You see, Commissioner Wilson has seconded the motion. All commissioners in favor of making that change to the responsibilities of the marketing coordinator and the vice chairs?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank
Anyone opposed? Okay, hearing none, so we'll change that. Great. Any other
Well,
discussion on the operating policies before we get to Commissioner Wilson's proposal? Welcome, Commissioner Nori. I didn't see you sitting there.
Yeah.
Yeah, hi. Okay, so Commissioner Wilson, let's get to your
Yes.
proposal.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Oh, there you go.
So, so for the last 5 years, I have wondered why we would not be able to have conversations that were non-public as a Juvenile Justice Commission. And that's based on having been in Santa Clara County's Juvenile Justice Commission. And there are some good conversations that can be had not publicly with system partners and amongst ourselves. So Judith and I have had a series of conversations this year.
Can you clarify who Judith is?
Oh, Judith Holliber, County Counsel to the Commission, and I've.
Here with us.
Oh, where are you, Judith?
She's down there.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Good to see you. We've had a number of conversations about juvenile justice commissions versus delinquency prevention commissions and juvenile justice and delinquency prevention commissions and the definitions of each. And in the process, learned that we are actually two commissions, a juvenile justice commission and a delinquency prevention with two different responsibilities in terms of the Brown Act, put together, not as one, but operating in unison with the same commissioners performing both functions of both commissions.
We're not the only ones doing that.
Yes. So we have the opportunity under the juvenile justice umbrella to have conversations, meetings, phone calls that would exceed Brown Act limits, and to have shared Google Docs, text messages, emails, where we don't have to say, do not reply all, as long as it's very clearly juvenile justice and not delinquency prevention. And I'll throw it over to you, Judith.
Yes.
How'd I sound? How did that go?
That sounded good.
Okay.
So the JJC isn't subject to the Brown Act. It's not a legislative body by definition. It's not an advisory commission. It's actually a statutory body with its own statutory guidelines, formation statutes and specific duties. I mean, the trick is just making sure you're not crossing the line to Delinquency Prevention Commission issues when you're meeting to talk as a JJC. And you can't, I mean, as a DPC, sorry, you can't talk about things that are the subject matter of the DPC without following the Brown Act. So if you are meeting as a JJC only to deal with only JJC business per the code, which pretty much lays out what that is, and something else comes up, you can't talk about that. Someone can say, I'll agendize that for the next meeting of the JJDBC, or, and then follow up there. Because everything the DPC does is subject to the Brown Act.
I think one of the main reasons we need to do this is because some things come up that are about specific youth, and we cannot discuss anything about specific youth in public. We need to maintain their privacy. And there have been a number of times when there has been an event at the hall or elsewhere that we should know about, that we are not told about, because we are not able to discuss it in confidence. So in my opinion, I think we need to do this. And the way a lot of the other commissions do it is they have a public meeting. And if there is a reason for something to be private, they have a separate private meeting that the public is excused from. So I don't think we want to go all non-public with our JJC. I think we just need that as an option when there is something we need to discuss that should not be made public.
I agree. The transparency that we have in talking about JJC issues, like we should continue that and just see this as an add-on option, right?
Yeah.
And so my suggestion is to sort of plan that maybe a half hour would be set aside to allow for JJC conversations.
If necessary.
If necessary. I think we haven't talked at forever. So I think I'm looking forward to having some conversations or sort of strategic conversations in that context. So I encourage, we're going to be feeling our way through this, but I would encourage us to have the mindset that we will set some time aside at every meeting.
So if we do this, are we still allowed to speak about like JJC related items in a DPC meeting if it's non-confidential?
Yeah.
Or
Basically, in my mind, at least, nothing really changes in terms of what everybody sees. It just gives us a carve out that we don't have right now. If we want to huddle together and have a conversation, you know.
That means probation can bring things to us that they have not been able to bring to us before.
Yeah.
But everything covered in the normal meeting has to be agendized in advance, even if it's JJC.
Yes. Well, it should be.
No, but if we continue to operate our meetings along the same lines, everything stays the same way. So we would discuss JJC things that are on the agenda in our meeting.
Yeah.
Yes, if it's agendized and it is published ahead of time, then
We still want to do that.
we can still talk about it. But the items that are agendized and we talk about at a public meeting as we have been doing, have to be confident, can't reveal anything about the youth, right? About individuals. So yes, we can have those discussions, but it's going to be the same kind of topics that we've been talking about, as opposed to having a meeting where it's not subject to the Brown Act. And just to be clear, that is not a meeting just of commissioners. There can also be stakeholders and partners that are there, where we can talk about items and that might be revealing and shouldn't be made public, but that are pertinent to the Juvenile Justice Commission and would help us do our job.
Only if those partners are also privy to that confidential information.
Yes.
Not like some vendor, or it depends who the partner is. I mean, clearly the probation department, it knows confidential information about youth you might want to discuss that are involved with probation or in the hall or an attorney, but not all partners.
Right.
It seems like something we would probably want to consult with Judith before.
I think it's on WIC 827 or 828 has the list of confidential partners, right?
Yes.
So we can just go down that list and it will reveal itself. I'll send that to everybody.
It's not so easy that it will reveal itself, but you can look at it.
Just for
Good luck.
Just for clarification purposes, so I understand. So we'd be operating as normal, but there may be a time when we have to go into closed session prior to a meeting, a regular meeting, to discuss confidential matters. Is that correct? That's basically the only change that.
Well, I think we should discuss what we mean, because what I'm hearing is potentially something different, which is at every single meeting, we're going to set aside some time to just discuss, which would mean that our meetings would become longer unless we carve out the existing time.
Right.
So I think maybe we should just talk about what our expectations are for all the commissioners.
City councils and the board of supervisors, if they have something that is confidential, they put that as a piece of the agenda. They just say, this is the topic. And they don't put it on the agenda if there's nothing private to discuss. So our meetings could run just the way they have been running and only change if something came up.
I think there was a second suggestion. I think Melissa's suggestion is different from that.
So my suggestion is to start, let's try it out. And then course correct as needed based on the usefulness that people see it to have. And certainly, so my suggestion to start is just, let's set aside a half hour at the next meeting. And then we can talk about this some more in that half hour. But, and then maybe we'll go to it only as needed, and maybe we'll decide that it should be, every other month or whatever.
Like a pilot.
But kind of a pilot. My idea was to throw this at Monroe and let Monroe figure out what Monroe thinks, how he thinks it should.
How I should agendize and run the meeting.
Yes.
So I would suggest that when you do, if you are agendizing such time, you just agendize it as JJC meeting only or JJC meeting,
Right.
And that as a courtesy, it's as is typical in most bodies, you put it either at the beginning or the end. So people who aren't wanting to come to the other meeting.
I think we'll put it at the
Aren't
end
left
so that we can manage.
hanging around, yeah. And then the only other thing that that crossed my mind too is, and I don't know exactly what the role is, but I don't think that the judge can participate or
Right.
engage. She will have to excuse herself as a potential having ex parte communications about juvenile delinquency cases. She can't hear.
Thank you, Judith. I just wanted to interject. I'm sorry to say that, yes, if you're discussing a particular youth, I myself or Judge Cadet would not be able to participate in that discussion. The only time that we can participate in a discussion about a youth is when we have both the youth's attorney there and the prosecutor. So as long as we know that's on the agenda, we would click out and not participate because it would be an ex parte communication.
Right. And Ron, how would that affect you? Yeah, how would that affect you? And we don't have the district attorney, the representative for the district attorney here, I don't think, unless Ms. Hahn is on the Zoom. But for the attorneys, would there be a similar situation where you would need to?
I mean, it depends on what is being discussed. I do have significant concerns about the subject matter that being discussed, especially if being discussed with probation being present and that information. It's really hard for me to comment without, but I do have reservations about what's being discussed here today. To what degree, the matter would be discussed and what information would be shared about the youth. So, but first and foremost, if any of our clients being talked about, we definitely want to be here, and I would like to be present on those discussions.
Right.
And we need to tread very carefully how we want to discuss these situations just because of the confidentiality. I know that the 27s do have a carve out for commissioners, but that's also to access the file, which is a little different. I don't know what the subject matter could be, the subject of the discussion. So, not to just throw a wrinkle into this, but I'm just saying we have to be very, very careful. I definitely would request that I be notified and be present at any time any of our clients being discussed.
And I was gonna say the same, similar, just for probation, we would need to know probably more so what would be discussed, because this is something that's new and I've reached back even to our chief and our county council, and things like that. So I think if we have more, like strict parameters of what would be discussed, and things like that would make it clear, because right now I think it's very broad.
Okay, so.
And this did occur to me too, when I was thinking this through in terms of what some of you have conveyed as the purpose. The partner involvement's tricky, right? My understanding, probation and the PDP don't sit on the commission.
No.
So yes, JJC meetings are not subject to the Brown Act, and you can discuss the things that you're bound to confidentiality. But once you start involving partners in that discussion, which I do think maybe was part of the vision, because that's, then it does get tricky when you're treading on, who's there and what you're talking about. So, I mean, I'm not saying it can't be done, but the clearest way to do it is that just the JJC commissioners are meeting about these things that you want to discuss that aren't subject to the Brown Act and that you don't want public present because of confidentiality.
Okay, so sorry, we have a motion that was written by Commissioner Wilson that is on the screen right now. And so just for everyone to clarify what it is that we might vote on here. I think that this motion is clear and that doesn't need to be changed based on the discussion that we've had. Essentially, what we're saying is that we have been operating, we technically are two different commissions. We have been essentially operating as one, that we want going forward to be able to sometimes separate the two and have JJC meetings that are closed to the public, so that at least commissioners can discuss subject matter of what's happening in the juvenile justice system in San Mateo County that we wouldn't be able to discuss with the public present because for confidentiality reasons. So that's the motion, right? Like, it's essentially that we can start
Yeah, the motion is.
holding separate meetings, that the meetings that are JJC meetings do not need to be public, do not need to be agendized per the Brown Act, and so on. And sorry, the other part of the motion is that it is possible for participants like probation, like private defender to be present at those meetings, but we have to figure out how to do that. Right,
I think,
first.
I think that we need to table this for further discussion. I don't think, this is not in shape that we could add this right now to our operating policies.
No.
There's just too much stuff here.
Right, so there's.
And to be, sorry, just to be clear, the motion is not to take this language and put it in our operating policies. But what should be part of the motion is also that
But this
we
is,
want to do this and we need to amend our operating policies to reflect that.
Operating policies would be a second step, separate from this conversation.
yeah, well, I think we need to concentrate right now on the operating policies and finish with the motions that we currently have on the floor before we
that's
go
true.
into something that's this complicated.
All right, just to come back to the motions that were on the floor, we had a motion to adopt the operating policies. We have then amended that for the language that Johanna suggested around, first around inspections, and then second to do with the marketing coordinator.
And those were
Both of
approved.
those amendments were approved. So the motion is still on the floor to adopt the operating policies with
As
those,
amended.
as amended. We can finish that, and today we can adopt that operating policy. And then we can have a new motion on this subject. How
Right,
does that sound?
sounds wonderful.
Okay, so then, commissioners, let's have a vote to adopt the operating policies as amended. The two amendments, right? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have operating policies for 2023. Now, the question at hand is, do you also want to make a motion to, as written here,
Yes.
that we will start having separate meetings for JJC and DPC? Then, and I think it's important that we say that the details of how we actually do that, still TBD, but what we want to operate.
This is a conceptual.
Conceptually, we will do this as you explain in the motion that's on the screen.
So I move that we consider what I wrote as a concept of being more clear about there being two different bodies and allowing for one of the bodies to have non-public meetings at
I
times.
second that.
Okay, seconded.
I don't see why we have to be two different bodies, because there are other counties in California who are JJDPCs. And that's one commission, but when they're discussing JJC, they can have a private meeting. And the thing that comes to my mind is a number of years ago, there was an incident at the hall where one youth sexually assaulted another youth. And obviously that's not something that we could discuss in public. So we executed a memorandum of understanding with Chief Keen that a subset, and we stipulated who would be the subset of commissioners, would meet with them to get the whole picture. And then they mutually would decide what could be brought forth in a public meeting. So the only way we are going to have a subject that needs to be discussed is if in our inspections or our interactions with the youth, we come across something that concerns us, or if probation or Ron or one of the other people who are involved with the whole system brings us something that needs to be discussed. So we do, I think it's a complicated thing that.
Okay, so first of all, so can we continue to call ourselves the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Commission, or do we need to be very clear about it being two bodies?
I think it is. I mean, the and puts the two together,
I've been on
right?
this commission for 5 years, and the perception that it was one and the same is why we have never had non-public meetings.
I've always
Santa Clara, it is called a Juvenile Justice and Delinquency.
It's not delinquency prevention, but Marin County is a JJDPC.
I mean, it says right in our operating policies that we are appointed as two for two different commissions.
And all of our
It doesn't say that,
presentations say that too. Like when we give a presentation to the community, it says we're a combined commission.
Yeah, we're a combined commission. We're not two different commissions.
Okay,
Yeah, it says the legal
For this
authorization.
question, I'm going to refer it to Judith because she's the boss on legal things and what the requirements are so that there's no misunderstanding. So my goal was to clarify everything. So Judith, help us.
So so part of what we did when we met and talked about it was look at the founding resolution. And if you look at the resolution, which I think I sent, I don't know if it's in the pocket, but
It's not in the packet now.
the resolution itself where the board created the DPC, it says clearly, I think it was in 09, maybe, I'm not sure. It says clearly that they're appointing all the members of the Juvenile Justice Commission to also be the members of the DPC. So it doesn't actually say we're combining. It says we can, under the law, create this commission, this advisory commission, this Delinquency Prevention Advisory Commission. We're creating it. And oh, by the way, all you people that were appointed for the JJC and the people who are going to be appointed to the JJC, you're going to double up. It's tricky, I think, to say that you're JJDPC and that you're not separate bodies and then not follow the Brown Act. I mean, the DPC portion of this body requires that you follow the Brown Act. If you're going to maintain that you're all one combined thing, then you're always subject to the Brown Act. Then you can't have those meetings. So that was the reasoning behind when looking at the reso and looking at the code section. And there are counties that only have a JJC, which, I mean, that's another option. The board can, they don't have to have a DPC. They can designate the roles and responsibilities of the DPC to probation. Probation can have their own person who does that kind of, delinquency prevention stuff. I mean, there's other options. It's in the code. This is an optional thing that the board decided to do. So I think if you want to have those private meetings, it has to be as the JJC.
Okay, so let me see.
Let me correct that.
Yeah.
Not private meetings. Meetings not subject to the Brown Act. That doesn't mean the same thing. So, yeah.
Let me see if I can clarify, okay? I would like to make a motion that because we are technically two different commissions, that we continue to meet together as the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Commissions, plural, but that we also, in 2023, start holding right after that joint meeting, some non-public Juvenile Justice Commission meetings. So that as commissioners, and we'll start just as commissioners, we can discuss some items that are confidential and sensitive and should not be shared with the public. That's the motion. Is that clear to everybody?
But I want to know, it doesn't have to be only for confidential conversations.
That's, okay, fair clarification. We can meet the Juvenile Justice Commission, and those meetings do not have to be public or agendized. And that and so my motion is that we start doing that in 2023.
When in 2023? Next month?
Could be next month.
I'd like to talk to some of the other JJDPCs and see what their legal.
Melissa has done that.
I have spent a year looking into this issue. I have a list of every other JJDPC in California and what they're doing. This is not, and we have
done this.
Yes.
All of them do.
Yeah, most of them do.
Yeah. It's not that crazy. It really isn't. Sleep on it. You'll feel better about it tomorrow.
We'll still have to take the vote, right? There's a motion on the floor. Karen,
Should we
Commissioner Levy, please.
First and then have discussion?
I
You
made,
have discussion, then you vote on the motion.
I made the motion. Someone needs to second.
I second that.
Commissioner Bocanegra seconds. We're having discussion now. Okay.
So as I understand this is that the JJDPC is a living body and that we can exercise to become JJC at will, and we don't have to agendize those portions of the meetings or make public that we're having those meetings?
I would make.
The JJC, just to be clear, what Judith said is that the JJC is not subject to the Brown Act.
Correct.
So because of that, a meeting of the JJC doesn't have to be agendized ahead of time, posted 72 hours ahead of time and be open to the public. All that is true.
So no public comment, like in a city
Correct.
council meeting, in a
Right.
closed session,
Those
you
are
would still
like
make.
a city council meeting, board of supervisors meeting, those are legislative bodies. The Brown Act governs legislative bodies. The Delinquency Prevention Commission was created by the Board of Supervisors, so it is a legislative body and it's subject to the Brown Act.
Well, it sounds like we would need to have separate meetings entirely, one for the JJC and one for the DPC. And there are things as a JJC that we would want to discuss in public because we want the public to know we're doing it.
Agendize those as part
We
of
could
your.
do that. Again, just to clarify the motion that I made, all right? Which is that we are operating as two commissions, that we continue to meet, both commissions come together and meet, that we discuss Delinquency Prevention Commission items. We also discuss Juvenile Justice Commission items. We're clear in the agenda as to which is which. And that we have the option for part of the Juvenile Justice Commission meeting to be not to be public, so that we can discuss certain items.
Yeah, and I think if you want to have a private meeting, you're going to either have to kick people out or we would have to move to another location where we were private, which is another complication.
Or we could have a meeting without notifying them that we're having.
That's right. You can also schedule a meeting.
We could
We
just.
could all have a Zoom. We could all have a Zoom together and have that conversation.
As long as we're careful about what.
Right.
Exactly.
Right.
Right.
And so maybe we want this meeting to be just the way it is, and then say we're going to have a Zoom every 2 weeks or whatever for 15 minutes as a JJC. I mean,
But
I think we don't have to solve that problem, to me.
To just be clear, the motion on the floor is that we continue on this monthly basis and we have these meetings and that we separate Delinquency Prevention and Juvenile Justice Commission, and that part of Juvenile Justice Commission meeting can be non-public. That's the motion on the floor. Then at that time, we can discuss, actually Juvenile Justice Commission, let's have a Zoom in 2 weeks because it doesn't have to be covered by the Brown Act. But that's not the motion that's on the floor right now. Commissioner Levy has her hand up.
I have a question.
Yeah.
And to respect the fact that we would be operating as two separate commissions, recognizing that we can operate as two separate commissions, should we have separate operating policies as opposed to the combo operating policy that we now have?
Well, so, and, you know, there was some back and forth about editing the operating policies, and unfortunately, just timing wise, it didn't work out, but, I mean, honestly, the JJC doesn't have to have operating policies.
Yeah.
We're just
I mean,
people.
operating policies are typically, or bylaws or operating policies, or you want to call it, are typically advisory commission, legislative body type. I mean, you can, but I mean, your operating policies are in the code,
So
you know, it's section.
they're helpful to us.
Yeah, so I mean, you can have it combined, and it doesn't hurt anything.
Yeah.
But you also don't have to like restate the code, the W&I code in your operating policies because, well, because it's in the code. I mean, but that's I mean, if you like it that way, but there's nothing that requires you.
That was to be educational to ourselves, because I think I'm the only one who reads.
But that's fine.
But,
I mean,
yeah.
we can do it that way. I'm just saying, this is all just, you
Okay.
know, to your liking. It's
And-
not a.
And I want to make a clarification about the motion that I made, which is that we can look at whether we need to amend our operating policies, and January is not the only time that we can amend them,
Yeah, got it.
right? Like, so we can do that, but first, let's decide that we want to operate this way. Then we can look at, well, should we change our operating policies to reflect that?
Okay. Got it.
Okay? Any further discussion on this motion?
So just wanted to clarify, what happens to Melissa's motion that was seconded?
That's what we're about to vote on.
Actually, her motion was never seconded. It was just on the screen. And
Seconded
then
by
I tried to simplify it and
I kind of sort of
and Paul
succeed.
seconded that motion.
I think there was a motion prior to that.
Yeah, that I seconded.
Oh, okay, you can withdraw it.
I withdraw.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah,
So-
actually,
So the
that's-
motion on the floor is the one that I made. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
Once a motion has been discussed by the body, it belongs to the body and not the maker of the motion. So the maker of the motion can no longer,
So we just
We can make a motion.
you need to vote on it and vote it down and then go to yours.
All right, let's have a vote on the original motion that Melissa made that was seconded by
Johanna.
Commissioner Rasmussen. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 But the thing is,
Oh, you want it.
I feel like what you offered is the same thing as what I offered here. Sorry.
And that's,
There are two, just to be clear, there's two motions on the floor.
Okay,
One is on the screen.
yes.
The other was the simpler form that I made that Paul seconded. Okay, so all those in favor of the first motion that's on the screen?
Nay.
No. I'll get to opposed. Let's start with all in favor, say aye. All those in favor, say aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Any abstentions?
I'm abstaining.
All right, there you go. That motion does not carry. Okay, there's a motion that I made, and to clarify, just to clarify one more time,
I move that.
I move that we, being two separate commissions, we continue to come together and meet each month as the Delinquency Prevention Commission and the Juvenile Justice Commission. And that for the Juvenile Justice Commission portion, we have the option to hold non-public discussions. That's the motion that I made that Paul seconded. All those in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, that motion passes. Now we'll figure out the details of how to make this happen. We'll leave that with me.
Great.
All right,
I just want to make sure we can Google Doc edit together.
yes.
Yes.
That's part of
That's one of my big
operating as a
goals.
juvenile justice
Yes.
commission without the Brown Act.
Great.
Not allowed to do that before.
No,
We just need to clean up that Google, who has access to that Google Drive, because we do have people on there that are not current commissioners, so we'll need to remove them if we're gonna be making documents.
Or have a separate Google Drive.
Yeah,
Okay, the details of that
We can discuss.
Thank you,
we will
everyone.
sort out, but we are going to start operating differently as the Juvenile Justice Commission. That was what we decided to do here.
But not Google Docking the operating policies if you're gonna combine them.
No, not the operating.
Okay.
policies. Yeah,
Alright.
yeah. Okay,
thank you.
Good discussion.
You guys always this fun?
It's a new year. It's a new world for the San Mateo County Juvenile Justice Commission. Thank you, Commissioner Wilson, for
you.
bringing that forward.
Thank you for
And
humoring me.
That was a lot of
We're not
work.
humoring you. We're going to get something valuable out of that and being
I
able
think
to
it
have
will.
those discussions, which we haven't had before as a commission. Yeah, so thank you.
Yes, I
Right.
can attest to her dedication.
All right, so I'm going to share the agenda again, so we know where we are. We'll get back on track. So we're still in section 4. We've just finished section 4A, and the second part of our annual meeting is to review and approve the look back at 2022, the annual report, which I circulated, and which I think commissioners should have all had a chance to read.
I move that we approve the report as written.
The 2022 annual report as written.
Second.
Commissioner Norrie seconded it. Is there any discussion? Are there any changes to the annual report or any discussion about it that commissioners would like to make? And I'm going to try to pull it up for everyone.
For any of our guests from the public, this was attached to the agenda. Chance to take a good look at what we do here.
There's one edit to the roles. I see there's a San Mateo County officers and roles. Roxana is still on this list.
It
Are
reflects.
you looking at the operating policies?
I'm sorry, I thought we approved, looking at the annual report.
Oh, at the annual report?
Yeah.
Oh, is it,
What happened?
is it in the appendix?
Oh, I get it. I get it. So this is a report of what happened. Okay, I understand. Thank you. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, and for anyone that wants to follow along on the Zoom, on the Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention Commission website, on probation's website, the agenda packet is there under meeting information. And this is page 34 of the agenda packet. So the motion is on the floor to approve the report as written. And if there are any other comments or questions that commissioners have, now's the time.
I think you put what I said in there.
Okay, great. Are we ready for a vote on the annual report? And yeah, without going over the whole annual report, it'd be nice to talk about it, but in the interest of time, it's in the agenda packet. It was circulated ahead of time. And once we approve it, it will go on the website. All those in favor of approving the annual report, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, great. The 2022 annual report is approved.
Congratulations.
Thank you,
Chair
Mario.
Louise.
A lot of work.
I'm not sure. if
A lot of work.
congratulations is good,
Well done.
but it's good read if anybody would like to. I think it's a good read. Okay.
Well, thank you, Chair Louise, for all the work that you put into doing it. We appreciate it.
All right, let's move on to looking forward to 2023. So as we said, the operating policies say we would consider the chair's vision for 2023. I deliberately did not write a document like the annual report for what we're going to do in 2023, because like we did last year, I prefer that the commissioners have a discussion about about what we want to prioritize and what we want to focus on in 2023. That said, I did just put together a few thoughts of my own, which I do have a short document that I'll share now, and I'll walk you through it. So first of all, a year ago we wrote a new mission statement, or we amended the mission statement, and we wrote down our aspirations, and we added some aspirations. This is just these 5 here are just a paraphrase of what our aspirations are. Just to remind everybody, we wanted to make sure that the voices of the communities that we serve are heard by elected officials and by this commission. We wanted to make sure that mental health and substance abuse services are accessible to all youth in the county. We want to support youth in the system and when they transition out of it, when they re-enter their community. We want schools to apply restorative principles and do everything they can to help kids graduate. And we want kids in elementary and middle schools, that's by younger kids, to have access to good after-school care that is trauma-informed. So first of all, I still think these are good aspirations, and I just want to reaffirm that our aspirations give us good guidance for what we should be focusing on in the future. And honestly, like, we shouldn't be rewriting our aspirations every year. There's a lot here, and I think that these are still a good guide for us. Looking at spending a lot of time writing the 2022 annual report, thinking back over this past year and the year before, I was just reflecting on what I think we do really well. And there are a few things here, but we do a really good job of understanding the lives and conditions of youth who are in detention in our county. Our inspection reports are fantastic, and we have commissioners that have regular interaction with and contact. And I think we do a great job of that. Along the same line, we're very thorough in our investigations and our reports. Our diversion report, our report on diversion programs, for example, last year, and the year before, our report on after-school programs are thorough and very useful. And through meetings like this, and then meetings in between, I think we have great relationships with our partners in the county. So we're doing a lot to gather information and understand conditions, especially I think for kids that are in detention. We're running good meetings. We have social media, thanks to Commissioner Rasmus, all of Commissioner Rasmussen's work. We communicate well, and then we have some great examples, like PeerPoint in this past year, of taking ideas and turning them into reality. In the 2021 inspections, inspection of Juvenile Hall, one thing that was pointed out is that in the youth's cells, they didn't have pillows, they didn't have drinking cups. They weren't putting up artwork and pictures on the wall. That's changed because of our efforts. So I really think the commission should be proud of the fact that we develop ideas, we do a lot of good research, we bring some ideas to fruition, and so kudos. We're doing a good job of that. But there are things that we can do better as a commission, I should say. And as I was scratching down thoughts, there are certainly some individual commissioners that do some of these things very well, but we haven't really brought the voices of the communities that we serve to this meeting, for example. And nor we've talked about going out and having meetings in the community, but we haven't really done it. Okay, granted, COVID, and we've been having meetings virtually. But one of our aspirations is to bring the voices of the community to make sure that they're heard. So maybe that's something that we can do better. Another thing that we haven't done is we haven't really had much of a presence like at Board of Supervisors meetings, where the Delinquency Prevention Commission is an advisory committee, advisory board to the Board of Supervisors. We certainly have some relationships with members of the Board of Supervisors, but we haven't gone and actually made presentations at the Board of Supervisors, that often.
It's very difficult to get on the agenda.
It's difficult, but we have good relations and maybe we could do that, right?
They formed this commission for the purpose of doing that. So
Exactly,
presumably
in order to receive advice. So, so maybe we could do more of that. While we have had a great focus on kids who are in detention, I feel like we've had less of a focus on kids that are on probation and in the community. And in particular, one of our aspirations said we would focus on reentry in particular. If we remember a year ago, we had a good discussion about adding that emphasis in our aspirations. And because there were other things happening and we did get a lot done in 2022, we haven't really taken the time to focus on reentry, nor are we, I think, spending as much time being aware of how's life for kids that are on probation and in the community. So maybe that's an area where we could focus on. And the last thing I'd put here is, these are my words, understand the pull as well as the push that get kids into trouble. And by that, I mean, conditions at home, mental health, the mental health of youth, maybe dysfunction in the home. These are areas that we've talked about and that we've spent time talking about. I think of that as what pushes kids into getting into the juvenile justice system. But the project that Commissioner Rasmussen and Buckenegger started last year about, for example, gangs in the community, I think of more as a pull, right? These things are pulling kids into getting involved in the system. And we put a lot of emphasis since we wrote our strategic plan 2 years ago on mental health, substance abuse, so I feel like we focus more on the push and less on the pull. That's what I mean by that. And so I'm glad that we have the gang project, for example, but maybe that's something more we could focus on. So just based on those ideas of what are we doing well and want to continue, and what do we what do I think we could be doing better? I had some ideas, but Commissioner Rossman, you have.
I just want to point out that we do have an active project, which is outreach to underserved communities, that Paul and I have actively done all through COVID. We may not be able to convey it, but we are operating under this outreach to underserved communities, and we regularly go to meetings and we do speak to people, and we're in the neighborhoods and we're in the houses and we're in the living rooms, and we are doing that. So I don't want it to go unnoticed, because it is an official project that the commission approved prior to me even joining. So that is underway.
That's true. Thank you for mentioning that. And like I also said, I think there are some things that certain commissioners are doing a great job of, but maybe as a commission, more of us could be doing it, and also as a commission, we could do more to make sure those voices of members of the community that you're meeting with are brought to the commission, for example, like to the commission meetings. Yeah. Okay. So there were a few ideas that some of which we discussed in our offsite last year, which we never really followed up on. But now's the time, right? We're thinking about what to do in 2023. And the first two these are both ideas that came up at our offsite last year. So these are ideas that I'll just kind of throw out for us to discuss. And one was, and this was Commissioner Uhila who suggested this, was that commissioners be responsible for certain areas of the county, and that they make a point of being present there, and that they get to know that area well, so that people who are in those areas know who to call, right? They know who their commissioner is. It's not exactly, district allocation, but if we form subcommittees who are focused on certain areas, and then we each not each, but maybe subcommittees of 2 or 3 that are responsible for different parts of the county, it might give us more focus, and we might be out in the community getting to know members of the community better. For example, I think North County is an area that we don't spend a lot of time talking about, but that we know where there are a lot of kids that are on probation or in detention that come from North County. The coast, we used to have a commissioner that lived on the coast, and he would speak up for, issues going on the coast. We don't really spend very much time focusing on that anymore. But if we form these subcommittees and have people really hone in, maybe we would. So that's an idea. Getting back to, being in front of the Board of Supervisors more often, we can set goals for ourselves, at certain times of the year that we pull something together from what we're working on and make sure that we are getting in front of the Board of Supervisors. There was so much that was recommended in our inspection reports, like food that we've talked about earlier in the meeting. We could break that up into separate projects. I think there's actually a lot there. We could spend our whole year just working on some of the recommendations that were in the inspection reports. But then that would, and this is a little out of order, but I'll skip ahead to this fourth, start projects focused on kids in the community. If we spend our whole year just focusing on the recommendations in the inspection reports, then we would only be focusing on kids in detention. But reentry, kids on probation in the community, that seems to me like a fruitful area for us to launch a new project. But then there are other things that, again, sorry, this is a little out of order, but there are other things that we're doing now that we really should continue, like social media, like having that strong communication, like meeting in person, which I'm so glad we're doing again. And then there are things that happen like PeerPoint and advising, school districts on after-school care, and the gang project that we're working on that really I feel like we should continue. So sorry that took a little while, but again, spending all the time reflecting on 2022, it made me think what are we doing well? What did we do a good job of last year? And what's kind of missing when you look at the aspirations? So here are some ideas for things that we can do in 2023. And with that, I will stop talking and open up the floor to other commissioners for ideas and so on. Oh, and it look like we have some people that would like to make public comment as well. But yes, please.
Sorry, Meg Gale. I'm here because I was interested in becoming part of the commission. Excuse me, I actually work for San Francisco CASA as a case supervisor, and we in San Francisco have CASAs for both foster youth and juvenile justice youth, both in juvenile hall and on probation.
Yeah.
Do you do that also here in San Mateo County? Okay.
Yeah, in fact, the way I got involved with juvenile justice in the first place was as a CASA, working on probation cases.
Well, that might be a way to help youth with a supportive adult.
Right.
I don't know how. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you. Kate Easter from Fly.
So just 2 comments. First, at the very beginning, scrolling back up.
Oh, sure.
All the way up to the
mission and aspirations.
Aspirations.
Yeah.
So one thing I would encourage you all to maybe consider on the mental health and substance use services, considering that they be culturally responsive, and also specifically, we would advocate for harm reduction within substance use abuse services as opposed to abstinence, because that is a more restorative and positive way for young people to address those things. So you might consider being a little more specific about the quality of those 2 services, not just their presence. And then going down to your push and pull.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm going to say this with all love for everybody in the room, but I think you might want to reconsider what the pull is to the systems themselves, and consider that there are there are policing practices, there are school practices, there are probation practices that result in certain kinds of young people getting caught up. We have less than 2% of our students are Black, and you heard 12% of our students incarcerated. And I'm not blaming people, but I'm saying that there are policies in place that result in that. So I would encourage you to rethink the push. And I definitely think there are push qualities. And I would actually lump all the ones you named as push. And consider pull as what about the system is creating these conditions, because kids make choices within the systems that they have to navigate. So just wanted to bring that up, and that maybe in your projects you do some work around, are there ways that you can bring in other policies or other ways of thinking that might address those inequities that we can.
Interesting. Yeah. And I didn't mean to imply that the gang product.
No. I'm just
right?
wanted to raise that as another way of thinking about it.
One project that Susan and I have sort of talked about is advocating for changes to the ed code. The ed code reads very much like a penal code in that if you do this or this or this, this is what happens to you. And so that is one project that I'm interested in exploring, the viability of getting the other juvenile justice commissions, reaching out to like the Youth Law Center, trying to understand what other people have done in the space, and then what would it take to push that forward. Another interest I have is that ed code excludes parents who have felony backgrounds and excludes providers who have felony backgrounds from participating at school. And that means that we are missing people like this man to be able to go into school and to be a mentor to youth who need that, or need the parent who has been incarcerated. They still should be able to be a parent if it wasn't a sexual trafficking or, you know. So I'm interested in looking at that as well.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there are things that the school has no choice but to expel, or the punitive result is determined by code. And I think that it shouldn't be. It should be determined by the individual case, because every case is different. And the circumstances of each case need to be considered before you implement a result or a punishment or correction.
And the ed code, you just put Wilson Swope, but it's an open invitation.
Sure. I just put it to remember who mentioned it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I add something to that? We're looking at the possibility that Gateway may be closing. And so I'd like to see somebody focus, like stay up to date on what's happening there. So we don't just hear when the date is that they're closing, that Gateway provides such a valuable service to our youth. I think that we would be remiss if we're not involved in those conversations about how we're going to serve those children and what we can do to keep Gateway open if need be.
Right. Commissioner Bocanegra.
Yes, going up to aspirations. I authored a resolution last year, resolution 2022. And I think that it's time that we turn the corner and place the language of ending the school to prison pipeline as a part of our aspirations, being that we've taken steps to pass a resolution denouncing the practice of condemning children to adult cages in our adult institutions. And I think it's time that we start hardening our language so that we can become more specific in what we want to do as an aspiration.
Well, also preserving youth is part of our mission statement, and it's not up there.
So this is, again, these are paraphrases. We actually did put that in last year.
Yeah.
These are sort of high level. These were my notes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there something there about preventing youth from entering, I guess? Or is that what Paul was suggesting, preventing youth from like joining or entering the juvenile justice system?
It's in the mission.
It is in the mission and aspirations already. Yeah, sorry. Again, this is like very high level paraphrase of that. Yep. Any other thoughts on plans or projects?
There was also, so we also have talked about educational or transition from the facility as a whole category. Like there's a lot of projects there potentially.
Right.
So one idea I had was like to identify 5 youth that we're just going to sort of track through the system as they transition out and go back to their home school, and what do they encounter and how many credits do they get for their time in Hillcrest, and how are they scheduled into their classes? Is it a recipe for success or is it disaster? If and when they come back to juvenile hall, or, you know, what kinds of, so there's a sort of a transition from juvenile hall, or even a larger story of what was happening academically before and what is happening academically after.
Mm-hmm.
And then also I have talked to Shelley about this, but looking at the measures of academic progress over time, skills development. And the Santa Clara County Juvenile Justice Commission did a study of this, which I'll send around to all the commissioners for you to read so that you have an insight into what's in my mind. But our youth are behind the 8 ball in terms of their skills. They get a lot of attention while they're in the facility from really caring staff. And how is that being reflected and measured on a standardized test, which they all take every 3 months anyway? So why aren't we looking at how they're doing?
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I wanted to add too is that I tend to use the public comment space frequently at the Board of Supervisors. So any one commissioner can utilize that space if they would like to raise awareness or have their voice heard in a larger, on a larger platform. So I would encourage all commissioners to definitely exercise their personal rights and use that space while wearing your commissioner hat, or you could wear your community member hat. However, I think that we do need to make it more of a habit to be in those spaces and utilizing public comment more effectively. Yep.
I would just like to once again invite whoever wants to join the Outreach to Underserved Community Project. We're here and we'd love to have you join.
Great. My intention in kind of kicking off this discussion and talking about 2023 was to throw out ideas for, you know, like what we should prioritize, where we can focus in 2023. In past years, we have voted on projects and assigned, you know, committees of commissioners to work on those projects. At the same time, we've also, you know, sometimes commissioners have kicked off projects on their own. And one good example would be PurePoint, which I don't think we actually ever like voted.
We did, yeah. I wrote a project proposal.
Okay, but anyway, I'm trying deliberately to be a little less structured about it this year because we seem to be, I personally think we're more effective when commissioners kind of pick up the reins and run with something. So we can recognize it as a subcommittee, as part of the commission. But in a way, I kind of like to see commissioners self-assign to some projects and then bring that to the commission and then memorialize it and sort of formally make it a project or subcommittee. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Fine.
Yeah. So
commissioners who have not said something should decide if they want to come up with their own idea in addition, or want to join me.
and if there are ideas that commissioners have and they want to run with it in 2023, then invite other commissioners, you know, to join them, right? Of course, especially if it's the delinquency prevention side of things, as we've talked about, we do need to acknowledge that publicly at a meeting and vote to form a subcommittee. and make it a project.
Do you want us to do project proposals as we have in the past? I think they are useful, and I like to see other people's proposals so that I understand what their project is.
I think it's extremely useful, and especially if we're gonna officially form a subcommittee of the Delinquency Prevention Commission, then having it written down and clarified as to what it is absolutely helpful, yeah.
And something maybe we could add here on keeping an eye on something is something that really stood out to me as a highlight for 2022 was watching as a district attorney slowly transitioned before the entire community as well as the commission into a judge almost in 1 week. Irene Cho, I believe that a judge retired and she submitted her paperwork and at the last second just went from being a district attorney into a judge. I think that the commission, Sharon, excuse me.
Sharon Cho. Well, she was elected as a judge.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think that that's something that we should keep an eye on what judges are, or district attorneys are becoming our judges, because it's important that we're aware of how certain prosecutors are viewing and working with the commission. And for instance, ending the school to prison pipeline, I think that we should have a better relationship with district attorneys as they transition into a position where they will be rendering punishment according to what the law is. And in this case right now, there's youth that are facing the prison pipeline. And as a judge, I think that her views on how she manages the law or applies the laws should be important to the commission. We've met with, I think, many elected officials, but I don't think that we've reached out to all the judges. And I think that that's a branch, a judicial piece of the branch that we should really focus on. 2023.
I think that's really good.
Okay. Are there, so again, I meant this to be a discussion, right? About what ideas we might have for 2023, and there doesn't necessarily need to be any emotion to form a project, but maybe at our February meeting we can revisit this and vote on some priorities, and commissioners who might have specific projects that they want to put some more detail around, like you're suggesting,
Okay.
Melissa, you can bring that to the February meeting.
I think there are also a number of projects that are not started or on hold on the agenda that was last updated July 25th, 2022. I thought that would be.
What are those?
Track overall reentry success from YSC.
Which we talked about.
Okay, improve education, reentry, and transition success. I think we also talked about that.
Yep.
Advocate for new youth substance abuse and mental health programs in the county.
Continue.
Yeah, which is something that we've done in the past, but we may want to continue this year.
And then investigate impact of housing insecurity on justice involved youth.
That was something that the Commissioner Bocanegra suggested last year, yeah.
And then what is the current state of SROs in the county?
Yeah, and I can circulate that to commissioners, but back in, I think it was July or August of last year, I tried to write down, like, what are our current projects. I put it in the agenda packet, but there are also some ideas there of what we could focus on in 2023.
Something I wanted to add to the conversation is one of the things that came out of my conversations with Judith is to clarify that we are responsible for both 300 and 600 cases. So we have an interest in our foster youth because they are foster youth, not just because foster youth are often part of the juvenile justice system. And I think that we've kind of given them short shrift in the past. So I just want to put it higher in our mind.
I'm not familiar with that. Can you clarify that? Because my understanding is that we're more, as the Juvenile Justice Commission, we're more focused on.
So I can give you my pitch and then she can tell you what's wrong with it.
No.
Well, I mean, I don't have it handy, but I think it's in the code.
So
it's It's
Inquire into
delinquency and
juvenile law.
dependency.
Yeah, so
Sorry, say it again.
Delinquency and dependency are specifically named in the code.
So we are responsible for both.
So we should be inspecting the receiving home and things like that.
We used to, I've inspected, when it was the receiving home, I inspected it on more than one occasion. And it's now a SRI.
I don't know where that code, so I don't remember where in the code it says those two things. Just it says administration of justice, and it says in some other code that we do have some dependency interests. But maybe we need to.
It says we can
clarify.
inspect group homes. But is there something beyond that?
I'd have to.
So in the interest of time, and just because this is introducing a whole nother kind of complex topic, I just want to, can we table this until February?
Absolutely.
Let's come back with more
I
information.
want to come back with more information because that is not clear to me from the code, but this is something
That was something that we talked about and I wrote up and.
if that's the case, then we should discuss it, but, you know, because we really have just been focused on kids on probation and in detention.
Mhm.
We have had some information each month from this past year from Director John Fong at Children and Family Services, but that's a whole, that's a much bigger subject.
Totally.
Which, one, we should clarify if that's the case, because I'm not sure about that. I personally am not sure about that, but secondly, if we are, there's a whole lot that could happen there, and we should decide what to prioritize.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so let's table that until February. So we said that our meeting, as we have in the past, would be 2 hours and go from 5:15 to 7:15. It's currently 7:08. One thing commissioners might notice is that I deliberately this year didn't put times next to
I saw
the
that.
agenda items.
I noticed.
Which I noticed at most other public meetings, they don't put times next to their agenda items. And it's pretty difficult for us to stick to the time anyway. So, you know, I do intend for us to still finish at 7:15 in the interest of time. So we are finished with section 4C of the agenda. And there were a number of things that we put on the agenda, but I don't think we're gonna have time to get to. What I would suggest is that instead of going through updates, section 5, that we skip that. Because I don't think there's anything for us to actually act on in those items. It would be, if we had time at the end, it would be good to circle back to that and maybe get an update on what's happening with Sam Trans.
Yeah, I also did prepare like a information page that I can circulate to everyone.
And we can circulate that.
Yeah.
But there was one action item in section 6A, which Commissioner Hugo-Levy wanted to introduce. And why don't, in the time that we have left, you.
Thank you, I appreciate
There
it.
you are.
Yes,
Please.
so, and actually, the person who asked me to present this today has kindly attended the meeting in person. So Mr. Rod Shao is here.
Thank you for waiting.
Our members of the public. And if everyone had a chance to look over the page that was in the agenda packet, which was a request for our commission to endorse this very special mobile app. And Mr. Shao's company has created this app, which is a tool to access local and affordable after-school programs. It's being used in several other counties in California, including Santa Clara, Monterey, also the cities of Oakland and San Jose, and also Kansas City, right? It is a wonderful tool that helps families connect with affordable and high quality after-school programs. We spoke to Mr. Shao, former Commissioner Barrick and I, when we were doing our report on providing affordable and accessible after-school programs for elementary and middle school children in underserved communities in our county. And one of the key findings in our report was that a barrier to use of existing programs includes costs, but also lack of information about existing programs and the available financial assistance. Some families just didn't even know how to start. And if you don't have, computer at home, what you might have is, what most people have is a smartphone. And so this is accessible on a smartphone. I won't go through and read everything about this, but do commissioners have any questions? What we're asking for is for the in-play mobile app to carry the endorsement of the JJDPC. And the other endorsements that they've obtained already, which I think are pretty compelling, is from Superintendent Nancy McGee and the San Mateo County Office of Education.
Thrive.
And the Thrive Alliance.
Thrive, and also the Santa Clara County Office of Education. But this would be.
So our name or the commission's name would appear on presentation materials that In-Play makes, because if we were to officially endorse it now.
I assume also on the app itself.
Yes, there's a landing page that we will build, and it would describe the purpose of this, the problem that we're trying to solve for underserved. Hello, Susie. And we've just left to put the logos there, and then if the commission so chooses, they can add a sentence of, of testimonial and support.
And is there also a website version so people can access it on, like, they don't need to open the app? Is there also a website?
Oh, just to be very clear, it is not an app that you go to the Apple Store to download. This is, it's a web app.
Okay.
It's downloading apps is a barrier to entry in itself.
Got it. Are there any commissioners that want to make a motion to
Motion
endorse?
to endorse the in-play
Second.
web app.
For use in San Mateo County.
We have a second. Any
Second.
further discussion? Commissioner Swope has seconded. Any other questions about it?
Just as a point of discussion, I would say if we did want to add some additional language, it would be along the terms of, kind of extracting from our after-school programs report. Like providing families in our county with a user-friendly mobile device accessible guide to summer and after-school programs would address some of the inequities and barriers that currently exist, which prevent children in underserved areas of our county from accessing available programs.
Okay, any other questions? We ready to vote? All in favor of the commission endorsing In-Play's app?
Hi.
Anyone?
Just lost Wesley.
Goodbye, Wesley. That's fine.
We have about 30 seconds left. Can I briefly just announce that Paul and I were able to collect over $1,000 worth of hygiene products, books, and magazines, and we delivered them to the YSC the day after Christmas, and the children were very appreciative.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to the community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was the Optimist Club of San Carlos who donated the majority of those items. So I wanted to get that out there.
Thank you.
So our motion passed.
Sorry, the motion passed. Yes, the motion passed to endorse. Thank you, Mr. Shaw.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you for your service.
Oh, yeah.
Busy with the mask.
It being 7:15, and I think we don't have any other business, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.